Quakers care about how our money is invested because we don't see a distinction between our religious values and our social values and our economic values. We believe in equality and peace and nonviolence in every aspect of our lives. And so the way that our money is spent and invested has just as much of an impact in how our values are lived in the world as any other aspect of our day-to-day lives or our social or political lives.
My name is Minerva Glidden, and I live in Orlando, Florida, and I'm a member of Orlando Monthly Meeting. We recently sold a piece of property that was the meeting had owned, and we looked around for a place where to best use that money so that it would reflect our values and absolutely earn us some money. We discerned and really had to thresh it a little bit, but Friends Fiduciary was the best fit for us and our money.
Friends Fiduciary is a Quaker nonprofit investment management organization that invests funds for other Quaker organizations in a manner that's consistent with Quaker values and beliefs.
Quaker Voluntary Service decided to invest our funds with Friends Fiduciary Corporation rather than any other of the options that were available to us because we knew that Friends Fiduciary Corporation has done the really hard back-end work of screening our investments.
First, we screen out those companies that produce goods or services that Friends simply cannot support and that Friends do not want to profit from. Those are companies that produce weapons components, that produce alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and companies that run gambling operations in for-profit prisons. We then positively screen in those companies in the remaining sectors, the financial services sector, so the banks, etc., that have the better ESG record, and ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance record.
People will say, when we started talking about money in this meeting, we said, oh, we don't want prisons, and we don't want fossil fuels, and we don't want, there were whiskey, we don't want drugs, we don't want tobacco, what we didn't want. What we didn't sit down and say is what we do want. And that's what Friends Fiduciary brought to the table to us.
When you're a shareholder in a company, you're actually an owner of that company. And I believe, and we believe at Friends Fiduciary, that as owners, we have both rights and we have responsibilities.
We talk to companies about many different issues, from food waste to methane reduction to how they're doing their lending and financing with banks. So when we engage with a company, we're coming to them with a Quaker values perspective and also a business case. And because we really believe that Quaker values are good long-term business values.
That process, if you will, of engaging with companies is called shareholder advocacy. And we believe as Friends that shareholder advocacy is a continuing witness to our Quaker values in the companies, in the investments in which we've made.
Shareholder advocacy was a very strong point for us. Once that was brought to our attention, that was very strong, because to use our money to change the world, to use that capital as human capital, as capital to basically stand by our testimonies was very important to this meeting.
Corporations are made up of people. When we engage in that kind of advocacy work, even if it feels like we may not be having an immediate impact, I think we're doing that from a core belief that there is that of God in every person, that every person is capable of finding that place of compassion and divine love within themselves and within other people.
If a company reduces its methane, that means something to the people living around, the natural gas extraction site. That means something for the environment. And I think for us at Friends Fiduciary, we are in a position to be able to make that happen because we're coming at companies with this unique voice. We're investors, and we can talk to companies in a language that they understand because we have that business grounding, but we're also Quakers, and we can also come at this from a place of wanting to express our Quaker values and to make those real in the world.
The concept of speaking truth to power, I think, is relevant here. Corporations are huge and powerful, but if we are dedicated to speaking truth in the world, to speaking truth to power, that's another area where we can have the opportunity to speak truth. And it may be that our impact isn't felt for a long time, but that's been true of our history, that we've stuck with what we perceive to be true, and we've spoken our truth even to the most powerful people and corporations and situations in the world, and that's just a part of our tradition, and this is another opportunity for us to practice that speaking truth to power.
Thank you for watching this Quaker Speak video. We release a new video every Thursday. We'd like to thank Friends Fiduciary for sponsoring this video.
Friends Fiduciary has been helping Quaker organizations invest consistent with their values since 1898. We witness to those Quaker values on Wall Street by actively engaging corporations on important issues. To learn more, visit our website, friendsfiduciary.org, or click on the button or link below.